GM, GA, GE, wherever you may be. Today on Lucky Trader, we will be talking some of the big sales that happened over the past week with Bored Apes. There were some solid gold furs that went for a decent chunk of change. Punks have been booming, for lack of a better word, and basically everything Yuga. So we'll be talking about that and preview some of the stuff upcoming this week. Tyler, welcome. How was your weekend? Because I know we've been going a little back and forth on some of the punk stuff, art blocks, high-end sales, or kind of it. You'd think that the rest of the market would be doing better with how much the high-end stuff has been going off, but what's sort of your overall market take on that right now?
I'm feeling bullish, Lou, and I know we don't have the liquidity or volume to really back that up, but there's some really good signs out there. One, anecdotally being, I'm finding myself glued to my phone and Discord and tracking sales bots again, which I wasn't doing, a few weeks ago. And I thought it was much easier to touch grass and go outside 3 or 4 weeks ago than it is right now because there's so much action. Like you said it in the show beginning, we're seeing 800 ETH gold ape sales. We've got 1,800 ETH punk offers on the table right now. Every art blocks product is up 30 to 50% on the week. So there's tons of action, and I don't know. It's feeling a lot like last summer. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. I think it's, except for the lower end stuff, like one thing we've talked about a little bit recently is Ethereum's price is lower. So some of these sales at the higher end in ETH terms actually come out less than what we saw last August even. So, 800 ETH for a Bored Ape gold right now, it went for it was just over 1 million after fees. And then you compare that to that would have been, I don't know, in like 450 ETH in last August or whatever. So it's one of those things where the Ethereum number is higher, so it appears like it's very bullish in that sense. But do you think it's just people are looking at it as $1 million sale, and that's where they're reasoning that 869 ETH is fine? Maybe it's also somewhat of a hedge on ETH, putting it in this asset, which the price in ETH terms is generally the same. So maybe they can sell it for more later. I'm not sure if that's how some of these people are thinking, but yeah, we've also seen it if like Xcopy, the grifters kind of went off this past weekend, and that trickled into the Max Payne and some of these one of ones, Fidenzas. Like it does seem like the high end buyers are out looking at these prices and potentially trying to get ahead of maybe changes in the macro environment that could be upcoming in the next couple of months. So if we were to look at the project rankings page here, what sort of stands out to you? This is over the past week. Obviously, the headliners are Yuga assets. ENS is still up there, but is there anything else jumping out to you here?
Yeah, a few takeaways. So one, we had to start with punks. I mean, punks are absolutely back. It was just a few weeks ago. The floor was at 45, and then it started moving when people kind of had that first repricing from ETH to US dollar terms. And then now they just keep building this momentum. Some sweeps happen. We see some top end sales. They're back up at like 76, 77 ETH floor. And it feels like they're just a stone's throw away from that key number of 100. Speaking of, the apes got there, or they're very close. I think they're 99.99 ETH floor.
Yeah,
unless that one sold.
It sells, then someone undercuts, and it's basically 100 right now.
It is, and that's a huge milestone. And there was a lot of chatter during the NFT capitulation, along with the crypto capitulation, 3 weeks ago, that NFTs were dead and we were never going to see those numbers again. And in US dollar terms, maybe that's true. But I'm in the camp that in ETH terms, we are absolutely going to see some of these values again. And you were kind of leading into it in your intro there a bit. But I mean, I think there's absolutely a scenario where we reach last August numbers, and guess what? Well, they'll still be down 50 to 60% in US dollar terms. So I don't think it's that crazy or hopium driven to think we're actually going to get back there. I think it's in a lot of ways. I think it almost feels programmed for some of these top sets.
It's more of a mental thing where people see, oh, apes are at 100, and they're mentally, even though it's a third of what it was at their peak, but in the US terms, it's kind of interesting to look at it that way. But I do think some people see that number 100 ETH and think we're back. So it's part of the mental journey that we're on, really, with NFTs.
Absolutely, and it's such a huge psychological number. And then now we're seeing it in the art space. So Fidenzas are back over 100. So just last night, 6 sales went through, 4 went from 83 to 110. That's a huge psychological moment for everyone in the art blocks community and Block Talk. And now kind of the focus is on what's next. Last summer we got 3 projects, I think, ran to a 200 ETH floor, or at least in the triple digits. So I think that's potentially on the table. You mentioned Xcopy. His grifters ran to a 30 ETH floor at peak over the weekend. I think we've got them on the board here. They're down back in the 20s now. So I went to Super Rare to check on the open Xcopy pieces out there, and basically the cheapest ones now are 500 ETH. So people have started to reprice in US dollar terms, and we saw some Xcopy secondary sales go around 200 ETH at low, in the past 6 months, which is still like 600 or 700K. So now the cheapest one, 550 to 600K. So people have absolutely started to reprice. I think that's going to continue to be a theme here in the near future.
And I wonder how much of it is from people that took USD off the table and have now bought it back into ETH. And that's a little, I don't want to say like for the sharper trader, but I'm not sure how often people are doing that versus they just kept it in ETH and now it's just paying less. And you could take that as some tax loss harvesting. We've seen those bots that show, you gain in ETH terms, but you ended up losing in USD terms. But some people are good to like counter with those losses. So outside of that, like there's a couple on here that are kind of new. Any of the new stuff pop out to you? Like Possessed is still up there. That Immortal Player character did some good volume over the week as well. But do you think any of these are sort of worth even talking about?
No, not really. I think that's another takeaway from the board is it feels like the recent runners, the free mint meta, it's kind of taking a back seat again as folks, start to become focused on the bigger projects, more of that flight to quality. And, we see the Possessed on here, even though the floor is down 50%, it's below mint. Immortal Player character had like a 1 or 2 day run there where it was profitable, but now it's slowed down significantly. A couple products over the weekend, the Saudis, caught some steam. It's backed by crypto Twitter. I mean, it's already back. It's already down 50% from its high, and it's certainly on a path to zero. I mean, that product looks like total dust. So, certainly it caught a meme. The Saudis are buying our bags, all that, but that one's already on the way out. So I think it feels healthy, right? Looking at the board, it feels like it's a lot more of the better projects. Where people are focusing their ETH, and I think we're all just tired again of the free mint meta. It came back. We did all the mint and flip, and there's just way more losers than winners in this past week, and I think people are just ready to take a break from it.
Yeah, and I think one other piece of this that we haven't exactly talked about, but we kind of have been, is this Yuga Labs it's basically everything in that ecosystem, but people are kind of prepping it, I think, towards potentially an announcement to go along with this demo on that Saturday, right? So I do think that's part of it. People are anticipating maybe the Mecha Dogs will be announced, because when it comes down to it, like a lot of these timeline things for Yuga, it has been once something comes up, they have to then announce the next thing. It could be announced that it's not coming until September, like this shows here on the original roadmap. It was looking like it was supposed to be September, so they might come out and say that, and then prices come back down because people are like, oh, 2 more months. But there's also, is there going to be the next 100K of the other deeds that are going to come out? So what's your thought here on what we might expect from announcements from them this week?
Yeah, I didn't hit this on the board, but one of the biggest takeaways was the Kindle Dogs, BAKC. They had this huge FOMO run. It was on Saturday, I think. They ran to 90th floor from like 6. And then that got everyone talking. Okay, there's an announcement coming. This is insider trading. If there is an announcement this week, the insider trading bells and alarms are certainly going to be going off again. It's always strange when you see, a project like that just kind of make that big, of a run all at one time. But putting that aside, it is the next step in this roadmap. This roadmap, the leaked roadmap, has played out almost to a T so far. Some of the timelines have been slightly off. Like, do I think we're going to get the next Metaverse 100K land sale in August? No, I don't. I think it doesn't feel like the right time. The market's not ready for that. Could the Mecha Dogs be moved up to August? Maybe. And it's got a much more palatable revenue raise at 16 million, and who knows, that could be projected secondary sales. So that doesn't even mean it's necessarily a paid net. The Mecha Dogs is interesting, but I think what's not getting talked about, but might be the most interesting, is Ultimate Mecha Ape, and they've got 3x the projected net revenue on that one. So I think the odds are we are going to get an announcement this week. I'll be surprised if we don't. And if it's the right one, it could be the catalyst for the next leg up.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and that's what a lot of these catalysts in the past have been. And we could get a little into the punks as well, but in the past, it had been when punks ran like this, it trickled to others. Now we've seen that happen with BAYC. Like, when they had that other deed sale, it did trickle to others after, but maybe not as much long term. But we could see that short term pump with that, and also Moonbirds are having their stuff next week, so we could see them. They're at about 29 ETH floor now, so they've been, except for that one little run they had, they've been just slowly moving up over the past month or so since NFT NYC, and they haven't really come back down further than 25 since that initial pump after the Carson. There was that run, but do you think that where do you think this could trickle to, if not just staying within Yuga? Potentially it trickles just over to other deed because they might announce something specific to them. So where do you think this is going to move that momentum?
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, one of the number one rules in NFTs is the whole rotation, and the money stays in the ecosystem. When people make sales somewhere, they almost always rotate it. And the fact that it's summertime, people aren't thinking about taking money off the table. There's no reason to sell your ETH right now. It's near bottom price. So I think absolutely people will be rotating it around. I've liked the price action on Moonbirds. We had the runs last weekend. It feels longer ago. Those were unhealthy, right? Like, it was 4 sweeps, and then all the listings came right back in. Whereas this past week, it's been a much slower march up with, buying at a more normal cadence. And we haven't really seen that undercutting and floor coming back down. So that's been good to see. Knocking on the door at 30 ETH. I think the Ape and Yuga ecosystem folks respect and understand Moonbird's project, and it's the next big one that we know is coming. Silver Nest is what, 9 days. So like if there's a big Yuga announcement this week, we see a lot of volume. I can absolutely see that then rotate to Moonbirds for those who want to try to play, an airdrop potentially on the Silver Nest. So I think that is definitely potential. We've seen the Punks action. It's been wild. Sorry, wrong screen here. Now rotation is to Meebits. Meebits are up, like 20% today. Yeah. They're at 5.7. So they're kind
of I can't believe I didn't think of that. Like that, I usually think of that when punks make the run, but Meebits just seem so far away now. It's part of the Yuga ecosystem.
It's a good call, but Meebits are just always off my radar right now. Just as a stable coin, I don't really know what their upside is. Of course, there's rumors of Yuga maybe giving them some utility. Wow, so they're at 6.1. I think that's up almost 20% on the day.
They're probably in the 4s, yeah.
So they're clearly a winner. Could those run up to 8? Certainly they've run to 8 in the past, so they're going to be a winner. And then I think there's 2 more potentials. So Art Blocks is getting steam. I think folks who played it last year but kind of been in the PFP space might start paying attention and rotating back there. And then there's more of the PFPs on the lower end. There's been some chatter on Cryptodes. Cryptodes are sitting at 2 ETH, $2,000 US, $2,500 US. Mm-hmm. I think those are getting attractive. And if the oddities come out, reveal, I wouldn't be surprised at all if some of the sales there rotate back to the Genesis Grimplin set in Cryptodes.
Yeah, and Cryptodes are always one Yuga rumor away of getting to the 4 ETH floor and then dropping all the way back down. But yeah, I mean that's another one. And this just seems like it's the same path each time, where punks trickle to Meebits, then Toads. Like it's weird how that keeps working out that way. I think there was a sweep or 2 on Toads yesterday. I want to say it was around 1.8, 1.9, and it got brought over 2. But look how flat that has been for so long, and then it has random bumps here and there. But yeah, I can see that happening. I just a secondary thing, very off topic, but I just thought of is so today's 7-Eleven. When Slurpee NFTs? Didn't see any announcement from them, but that'd be funny if we saw something like that pop up today. But yeah, I think Cryptodes make sense to me, especially with Gremplin's going to be in. There's going to be this narrative that comes out with oddities that people are going to say, oh well, oddities are X price. Toads were his Genesis PFP collection. Why are they so low? I could definitely see people talking themselves into that. I've looked at Toads for that reason, but I just feel like every time you buy Toads, people are so ready to list once it starts moving that it's hard for them to really move out of this and hold above 3 ETH at this point.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, the rule in Toads for the last 4 months is you can buy them at 2, sell them at 4.
Yeah.
Will they be able to break out of that trend? I don't know. Hopefully. I think there's still a lot of diehard holders in that set. But we talked about punks a decent amount. I want to just quickly show there are 1,800 ETH, $2 million offers on 3 of the 8 punks right now.
Yeah.
So if one of those goes through, it can absolutely be, catalyst for the floor to get pulled up there. And once again shows punks are number 1. That's what 1,000 ETH more than the Gold Apes have been going for. Also a good sign for that alien, that we've been wondering, Deepak's alien, which he's got listed like 9,000 ETH. If the ape goes for 1,800 or 2,000, probably makes his looking a little more palatable, at least at 6,000 ETH. So If an ape sells, then the alien sells. I mean, that could be a huge catalyst for a punk trend.
I think I'm not in their shoes or anything, but I mean, a $2 million offer on one of these, unless I spent over $2 million on it, would be pretty enticing, especially in this market. And I don't want to use it as like take one for your team, but it does, when these sales happen, it is very positive for the punks market, very positive for NFTs in general. So part of accepting it, because we saw that with the gold ape, once it's sold, people are like, ooh, a gold ape can still sell for $1 million in this market. And then people are a little happier in it, and Bored Apes moved a little bit because of it. And so I think part of it as well is its confidence in the market when someone accepts that. But I mean, what we see right here in the top 12 sales in USD terms, it wouldn't even be on here.
Right.
So it wouldn't 50%. Be on, it would be on here because
in ETH terms, it would be
terms.
Yeah. So,
but it would be way below any other one on here in USD terms. So that's part of it. But who knows? Like, we'll see. I think. Do you think it'll go at 1,800, or is the person who's offering it potentially willing to go up to, say, 2,500, and it's going to be like a little back and forth?
Yeah, I think we'll find out in the next few hours. If I've got an 1,800 ETH offer and two fellow owners who I may or may not know have the same offer, I'm probably going to take it if I'm interested in selling. But it's tricky. I mean, the tough part is last summer, these were selling for similar ETH, but way more US dollar terms. Like this gold chain for $5.5 million. Punk 4156, him exiting Punk with a $10 million sale. So in US dollar terms, it's a little bit too low. I think he's going to have to come up, but I think if there's a 2 in front of the offer, he can probably get it done. And once again, that's going to be huge for the alien punk market as well.
And it's crazy because like that one sale would double the 24-hour sales total, which is funny to like think of. But even like what we were just saying is, it is the best ape a gold ape, and if that's the best gold ape, why is it still that much lower than the best, second best, I should say, CryptoPunk, right? Which is our apes. So that's the part that's a little interesting to me, as well as I would think an ape CryptoPunk shouldn't be going for more than double of what the gold fur ape did. So that's another part of it that I'm still trying to figure out how to grasp. The aliens still make sense to me because of how little amount of them there are. And to me, like, I don't think, I guess it's the idea that this is like the iconic ape CryptoPunk, but I don't know. I just think a gold fur ape is going to go probably highest. So I don't know. To me, that part of it makes it seem like you should accept the ape CryptoPunk at more than twice that. So I don't know if you have a take on that, but do you think the gold fur apes should be compared to these in any way?
I think it's the difference between a collectible set and a utility set. And Bored Apes are the number one utility PFP in the NFT space. But whether or not you have a floor or gold, you've received all the same perks to date. Are they moving up in collectible status and Veblen good tier? It seems that way. But they don't have 5 years of history behind them like the punks do. And I think the discrepancy in top end sales is really telling, about how, whales, the top end buyers and collectors are viewing these two sets against each other. And, it makes me think punks are going to flip the apes again here soon, and maybe retake that top spot and keep it. But I mean, clearly, a lot of wealthy collectors and buyers think they're the number one, and that's what these top end bids and sales are showing us.
Yeah, and it's very indistinguishable an ape in the CryptoPunk set. It looks very different than one of the base CryptoPunks.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that's part of it. Like aesthetically, there are people who probably think that the apes are better because of that. They do look much different than a lot of the others. Even the aliens don't look all too different. Like their big difference is the nose, and of course the blue color. But yeah, I think that'll be interesting to see if that goes. Probably would be today if it were to happen, with it being sent to three different ones. And the other side of this is there are a lot more solid gold furs than an ape punk.
2x,
More comparable to a zombie, but even the zombies go for more than the gold apes. So that's a little part to it, is maybe there's just too many of the gold Bored Apes that they didn't really factor that in, that they would need something super rare in their set. Not like need it, but I think that's why we saw the mega mutants go for so much more, because they're just the rarity factor involved. So
very true.
Cool. And then let's get a little into art blocks, because they have some stuff coming up this week. We talked about Fidenzas, Fidenza floor back over 100. We've seen some. What was the highest one? There was 150, right? Were there one? I know there have been a couple over 100 in the past few days here. You see a little bump up. But
150, 164.
Yeah. So people are getting a little back into the high-end art as well. And as we were saying earlier, part of that is due to ETH price and it just looking that much more attractive to people. And so I wonder if part of it is people who are buying into this are maybe expecting ETH to go even further down. So they're trying to get in now. Unsure on that, but what do you think about sort of what's up and coming for art blocks? We have a factory drop coming in half an hour or so. And then there's curated one later this week. There's that 19 count supply that we talked about. But let's talk about this Total Strangers first, while we're on it. This appeals to me art-wise. There's 555 count of the Total Strangers. I think it'll be interesting to see what they look like outside of just this one. Are they all going to be on this? Like, it's got a little sketch pad look to it. It's on graph paper, this current image. But 0.1 is a pretty tempting price to me, and it's going to be that flat rate. Are you expecting these to go quickly? Are you expecting them to potentially not sell out at all? With 555, are you concerned at that price?
So I've changed my mind a few times on this one. I do think with the art blocks tailwinds, this one's going to mint out, and I think it's probably going to go pretty quick. I think there's such a difference in these flat fixed fee mints that more of your traditional trader flipper base is used to, versus the Dutch auctions, which when these Dutch auctions start at 3 ETH or 1 ETH and you just sit there, you get distracted, you go make lunch, you go do something else, and no buys come in, and it just feels like there's no FOMO at all. But this is at 0.1. If there's 50 sales in the first 10 seconds, everyone's clicking the purchase button. So I think it's got FOMO in its favor. A couple, bear, cons for this one, right? 555 supply per factory is high. Factories in the 200 to 300 range have definitely performed better. These artists have done another project. They're tied to the Low Tide project, which has a pretty low floor, hasn't really done all that well. And the fact that we don't have any other sample outputs isn't too great, at least from what I've seen. On the pro side, we talked about, the the low entry cost, that's a big pro. And it's got like the fun, cute factor. I think this one appeals more to more of a mainstream NFT collector trader base
You
than
could
does
make
more of
like
the
this could
pure
be a
abstract stuff.
PFP. Like
That's
that one
true.
there, people could use that as a PFP. So if a lot of these, or in with it being called total strangers, I assume a lot of them are somewhat avatar like headshots or just in general like looks like people. So I can see that appeal. It's kind of cool. I this is what I'm going to be watching. Like you said, if it's going right away, you might have to hop in fast, but I'm expecting, because people have been talking about art blocks recently, a lot of these factories at this level have been selling out. I would expect this one to sell out. There's not a ton else happening today
Mhm.
at that point. Like the Jenkins, which we'll come to here in a second, that one already did its mint. So there's not really much else going on to take the place of this in the next hour or so. So I think that's got in favor for it as well. But yeah, what else for art blocks this week are you potentially more excited for or less excited for?
Oh, yeah, before we move on, I just want to quickly share just a bit of alpha. So for folks who are hanging in Block Talk and see some of these open projects start to mint out, there could be some good opportunities to jump in. So I'm going to try to filter by the completed ones. Um, so there's like 27 open projects in the factory space right now. Just this morning, this one that had been open for a few weeks called The Spring Begins with the First Rainstorm, supply of 487. The last two, it had like 280 mints. The last 200 sold out this morning. The floor instantly doubled. So this was a 0.1 mint. The floor on secondary went to 0.2 right away. So that just kind of gives you an example of when FOMO does happen, it can happen and happen quick. And I think that bodes well for today's mint.
That had a similar supply count as well.
Yeah, exactly. 487 sat open for weeks. So I think that is a great sign. Let's come back to curated. We can end on that. I think what might be the most interesting of the week is this 19 supply 319 Santiago project. So I think we talked about this a little bit last week. They have
What's the
since,
lowest supply before this?
I think this 50.
It has to be this, yeah.
I think 50, and I think next after 50 is 100. So this is by far the lowest. They've now increased the starting price to 19,
That's
which actually
wild.
probably hurts it.
Yeah, when it was 3, it would have sold out right away.
I think at 3 it sells
19
out
doesn't
right
even
away.
sell.
Yeah, now you're going to get people who are a little bit more comfortable waiting, but
Yeah.
you know, once that sales count ticks up to like 4, if you want it, you probably have to move. But you know, a lot of the more serious collectors and the ones who are putting real money in, like a big part of the value of these sets is generative art across a larger supply. So, like, a part of the reason why Fidenza is the most valued is people think there's 1,000 great outputs and no bad outputs in that set. So, you know, comparatively, this requires less, you know, value or less coding expertise to just create 19 outputs. Like, how vast, how different yet connected can this set of 19 be? So I think that has it going against it, but it's absolutely going to be a wild card. And when this is happening the 15th, so that's Friday. So if Wednesday's curated goes high, this one could very well go even higher.
I don't like that they changed the opening price. That makes it feel, I mean, I know there's only 19, like how cash grabby can it be, but they're adjusting it because it's gonna instantly sell out at 3, so now they 6x what the price is. It seems, I don't know, I don't really like that side of it. Bad taste in mouth kind of thing. But yeah, so this curated is going to be a 500 count, and I expect, because of how Art Blocks has been doing, it almost doesn't matter what the one today does. Would you agree with that? Like if today's flops, I don't think that's necessarily going to hurt this one. I think the fact that the last one of Series 7 did well, generally the first one of series do all right, especially if the market for them are doing all right. So what's your take on Running Moon out of 500, and it's going to be on Wednesday?
Yeah, it's a really nice supply there at 500. I like these outputs. They're not animated. I think you brought this up, but typically we see the still pieces perform better than the animated, at least so far.
Part of that is due to OpenSea can't handle it,
Mm-hmm.
at least on that like initial. So I think that's part of the reason why I have that take is um, if it doesn't reveal on OpenSea right away, that loses a lot of the momentum. So if these ones aren't massive files that are going to take a while to reveal, but I think a lot of them look different enough compared to some of these other projects that we've seen there that could work in its favor. But what do you think from an art standpoint? I think these could appeal to people.
Yeah, I like that she had this project page, kind of going through some of the sample outputs, talking about the project, kind of what went into it, her vision. I think that's always a plus. People like to see that. There's nice variety in these sample outputs. In a lot of ways, it reminds me of Anticyclone,
Mm-hmm.
and how the kind of different sectors of the page that are filled in or not, which has performed incredibly well. It hit like a 94 last week. So because of that, some nice colors. There seems to be pretty strong sentiment. I think this one's going to go high. That brings a much newer degree of risk into this one than we've seen in the past. I'm going to go back to it.
So it starts at 3.
Starts at 3, exponentially decreasing. So that means it's going to go faster.
Constantly, yeah.
And not just a linear base. I'll be interesting if she increases the price before Wednesday. I hope not.
Yeah, what I just don't get why they do those. Do you think that it could? I don't think it would sell out at 3 though.
I don't think it will either, but it wouldn't shock me. So in my weekly preview, I said I think it's going to mint out between 1.5 and 2. That's in line with what Petro Nacional minted out at. It's almost 2x, what Sudfa minted out at, which was the last curated drop. But this is a new environment. We've got stronger tailwinds, and I can tell you more of these alpha groups are talking about art blocks. They're on their calendar. They're getting the group pings.
Yeah.
And people are talking about how do we bot art blocks, and just like they bought the free mints. So there's going to be a lot more attention on it. And I can tell you the motivations of most of those groups is to mint and sell right away. So you have to enter these mindful of the price point and kind of the dynamics. So, if this gets botted and then 60% of the supply gets listed on secondary, it's not going to perform well on Wednesday, right after mint. But, if the price goes down to a more reasonable point, in that 1.5 range, I think it becomes incredibly profitable. I wouldn't be surprised if this one reaches 4 in the right environment, as long as we don't see 50% of the supply come on the market right afterwards.
And part of that though is it is curated. I think the idea of flipping and getting out of it right away on the first of a series, and this is more anecdotally, but I do think less people are going to get a bunch of these. And if you only have 1 or even 2 of them, generally you look to see, did you get a rare before you list? But I think the fact that some of these have been running recently, if you only have 1, I think some people will be less of a rush to sell in that sense. They'll list it a little higher to start, and then if it doesn't sell for a few hours, then maybe come back and bring it down. But I do think at some point, it depends on what this sells out at. If it sells out at 1, then for it to quickly run up to a 1.5, 2 ETH floor seems a lot more likely, especially I would expect there to be a FOMO at the end here and people that miss out with the gas war then buy on secondary. And so if you had to guess where you think this ends up at, assuming that they don't change any of the price restrictions here, do you think it would be in the ones or in the twos?
Yeah, I think it's between 1.5 and 2.
Yeah.
Really hoping to see a 1 in front of this one. It won't surprise me if it goes over 2. I would be surprised if it goes out at 3 on the gun.
I'd be surprised if it goes under 1.
Oh, for sure.
As well.
I mean, the curated floor was got to 0.6 last night. I think it dipped
all
a little
curated.
bit. We saw that the entire curated floor got up to 0.6. So now there's a natural min price, and that min price is elevating as more collectors are kind of coming into those old curateds. So that is definitely a factor. I think what used to happen was the initial 4-hour hype window where it would run, you had a chance to sell, get out, and then it would slowly drop and liquidity would kind of go away. Sufa kind of has just bucked that trend. So it did that right away. So Sufa went from 0.9 mint, ran to 1.82 ETH secondary, and then kind of slowly dipped back to 1.3. Guess what? It's kind of back to 1.8. I don't know the exact floor price, but it's been marching up. I see the sales. So whether you didn't have to just sell it in that first 4 hours to be profitable, I guess is my point. If you're holding it now, it's more valuable. You're still up 2x, which is a good sign for folks to be able to hold this and not feel like they just need to flip. And then I keep thinking back to last summer. It took almost a month of art blocks being on fire for the primary mints to get really heavily flooded, where they became less attractive. And I don't think we're there yet. I think we've caught more attention, but I think we still have some time.
Yeah, my take on this, and we've talked about it a little bit before, but this is the one to go after. The next one is not the one to go after. The second curated, if this one runs, is going to be a bad one to go for. Is how I would expect it. I think it would go for an overprice on mint out. Then people see that they can't get their money back and it falls apart. So that's generally how these have been, is you don't want the second one after a big one. But I do think the fact that this is the first of this set is going to help it. Mm-hmm. And we haven't really seen, we saw the Sudfa, but that was, I don't know, 3 weeks ago at this point. So it's not like it was last week. It might be far enough away that I don't know.
No, but yeah, I think your point. It feels long enough away. We didn't have a curated last week. We just had a few factory drops, so the supply feels much less. There's a drop today, but that's kind of put that aside. Today's drop isn't going to impact Wednesdays, like you said. So, what could not impact it, but along these lines is we've got another major art mint this week in the Goda. So the Goda Pass, they're having their first mint with Nina Chanel's Super Cool World. That's launching on Wednesday. You can see a few examples of the outputs here, a little bit from the project site. So Nina is famous more in contemporary traditional art. The whole vision of goal of the Goda, the Gallery of Digital Arts, is to help move artists over from the traditional space, give them a path to get into digital art and the NFT space. So she's the first artist to go. That's making it kind of like the Genesis project for Goda. It's going to be a PFP, and it's going to be big supply. And we have a little bit about the project here. So 5,080 NFTs, generative PFP based. And is going to bring in some characteristics, features of her traditional art style. And they've got the numbers in here. There's going to be rares. I was looking through the FAQs. I think there's going to be 100 rares in the set. Here we are. There will be a top 100, 10 unique images made in 10 different colorways. It's going to be a 0.5 ETH mint. Go to pass holders can mint 2, but have to pay. And and then they're running a pre-mint raffle, which will happen afterwards, and that's also a 0.5 ETH mint, one per wallet. My gut is it's a high supply for that price point, and that's got me a little bit concerned. If this was a free mint for pass owners, I think it would be absolutely a smash. The 0.5s haven't been going super well. I don't know that many of the pass owners, are super knowledgeable of Nina's work in the traditional art space, nor is the secondary market. So I don't know what secondary demand is going to be for this one. So I'm a little bit more cautious ahead of this one. But as a pass owner, I am likely going to mint this one.
Yeah, that I think it's one of those things where the passes are like 10 ETH around at this point, and probably going to, because it's the first one, generally the first in these cases do well. We saw it with the grails that were from the proof pass, and we've seen it in other cases where the first of the mints do well because they have that narrative to them. So I think that's got it going for it, and the type of collector that has a go to pass was mostly buying for stuff like this. So I think that has it going for it. It's a very low price point. Seems like a no brainer to mint it if you have the ability to at that price. So that'll be an interesting one to watch what it does on secondary. What was the supply again on it?
5,080.
So still a pretty low supply. Might be one that I'll look at for potentially trying to get in on secondary, because that's a pretty low supply. There's 1,000 of the go-to mints. And I don't necessarily, this isn't the same as saying like, oh, PFP at 8,000 at 5 times the supply. Like, I don't think it's necessarily the same way as that, but it'll be interesting to watch this one, I think, for sure this week.
Agree. I think the only red flag for those to be cognizant of, knowledgeable of, the pass was sitting around 12 ETH and had been on a slow march up before Nina's project was kind of revealed, and we saw some of the samples. And since then, the pass has dropped from that 11 ETH range to around the 8 ETH range. So that tells me at least a few sellers weren't that excited about the drop. But we talked about this before. I mean, there's 15 listings below 11 ETH. It's hard to let 15 people who want to sell kind of dictate, the value of the entire market. So I don't know. Maybe don't read too much into it, but be aware of it ahead of this first drop. But certainly, this is going to be an interesting one. And if this one goes well, we're going to see that pass start to shoot up.
Yeah. Cool. And then the last one I wanted to talk about for this upcoming is the Jenkins vault. So they minted it today, the Bored and Dangerous, the pass for the book, and it minted out at the bottom of the Dutch auction at 0.2. Looks like for some reason it's showing that one extra one was minted, but minted at 0.2. Looks like it's around 0.27 on secondary right now.
Oh, wow.
So a little up. And then people that there's 3 different rarities on here, so that could potentially change some of the pricing of one over another. If you were to mint it, check that, because it looks like they might all just look exactly the same, but there are different rarities. I'm not exactly sure what the rarities do, but yeah, currently trading above mint at where it ended in the Dutch auction. That rarest one there looks around a 1 ETH floor.
Wow.
So if you were able to mint one of those, that's pretty nice right now. But fair warning, the holders of the original Jenkins collection are able to mint one free and then 25% off. So 0.15, they can mint a second one. So they can essentially get 2 for 0.15 combined. Those will be minting out over the next 48 hours or so. So if you have one, just make sure you know that there's more supply coming, and it's coming over in the next couple days. So we'll see. But basically, and I'm not sure if you have like a take on this, but basically the book you will be able to burn or stake in order to pretty much get the next thing. We've talked about this a little before, where we thought it had some pixel vault vibes to it. You can burn it, and then you'll be getting the Azure, if I'm saying that correctly, Azure root, of the ability to mint that at 0.08. So it's not burning for free one. You're burning to then have the right to buy, and then some will be staked. So this goes back to the original Punks comic is where I would compare this to, where people have the choice to burn or stake, and that's going to create the Azure PFP is likely going to be a lower count. But then for the staking, the DAO, I wonder how that's going to come out. But if there's less DAO tokens, you have a higher percent of it. So there is some game theory involved here. I'm not sure if you minted. I minted these, and then gonna kind of see what goes with them, because for me, Jenkins have been one of these mid-tier projects that had a lot of talk around NFT NYC. They had pretty good output there, and it seems like they're doing a lot as a project. And they brought on Thread Guy, who's their director of vibes, and he's been talking about them a lot. And they seem like they have a lot going with that, going for them. And the connection to Bored Ape Yacht Club is always a positive. So, what's your thoughts here on this new Jenkins mint today?
I like it. I didn't mint. Had I known about that rarity, I absolutely would have minted. So now I'm kicking myself for not minting, because I was staring at it at 0.2 and didn't click the button there. So good thing for them. So I misinterpreted. I thought the next 11,000 were at 25% of the Dutch auction, but you're saying it's 25% off. So you think it's going to be 0.15?
I thought it was 25% discount.
That would make more sense.
But the holders get to claim one for free.
Right, and that's another 6,000.
So it's claim one, mint at a discounted price.
So
is how I read it. Yeah.
I'm trying to find this video. Of course, their Twitter is just
now they're just retweeting what everyone does. Oh, so there is a different color to the rarities. I guess I didn't notice that.
So it's interesting. It definitely feels pixel vaulty in some of like the game theory, which I like. A new PFP in the cult Bored Ape community, and an attractive entry point. Man, I can see that doing well.
In the high end of the Jenkins, the keys, the yachts, those were going for a lot. People wanted to be in this book. There are people that gave rights. The mutant that I had, I gave 50% of its rights to Captain Trippy. So he was offering up that, because you could share the rights, and there was a time frame. They're like, oh, if you don't want them yourself, you can share it with someone. And so I gave him 50%, because I was like, I know mentally I'm probably going to sell this at some point. So there are a lot of the bigger ape holders that are pretty connected into this one, and have a lot of are going to have a lot of the supply, and then probably a lot of this DAO percentage. So I do think that's part of it to why I'm looking at these, and depending on if they dip, because I would expect them to dip. That initial, what the price was, people are now finding out, oh, there's another, more than 10,000 of these that are going to still be coming out with supply, and they're probably going to list and drop the floor a little bit. So I might be looking to even buy some if they dip enough. Just because I think the price of these should hold around here. I'm not sure. Like the Jenkins floor is around 1.75 or so right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying these are going to have a floor of 1 ETH anytime soon or at all. But I do think that the fact that there's this burning mechanism that potentially they'll come out with reasons why you want one or the other. And there's that game theory longer term that if there's less of them, there becomes more of a demand. So I'll probably look into that here as the next 2 days come and people start minting them if it drops enough. But who knows? We'll see. We also thought the WAGMI United would drop a lot more than it did. So is there anything else this week that you had on your radar or you want people to know?
I think we mostly covered it. There's really not a whole lot on the radar. There's a handful of free mints. There's a handful of new projects that don't really have huge followings, but overall it's a pretty quiet week. So maybe we'll have some stealth drops, but it feels like a prime week for some of like the major projects to come in with announcements and really be able to take over market share. Because the attention is here. People are paying attention again. Engagement is up. So it's the right time. So I'm optimistic we're gonna have a good week here.
Yeah, and we'll be back on Thursday. We'll probably do. We've been doing Twitter Spaces on Tuesdays, so look out for that for tomorrow. And then Thursday we'll be back on a live stream, and that one maybe we'll focus a little more on this Bored Ape Yacht Club demo. Maybe that we'll get some news before then, because it seems like there's some news ready to be had with them. So we'll see, and enjoy your week. Don't get too stressed about these sort of things, as I think next week, the week after, is when there's going to be more interesting stuff going on. But look out for art blocks. If they do well, don't tell us we didn't tell you so. So
today's factory minted out in 1 minute. I missed it.
It already minted.
All 555 sold out the first minute.
Instantly. Wow. Okay. Well,
art blocks is back.
Art blocks is back. Let's see. Cool. So we'll see you guys on Thursday.